Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining on this weekly webinar on AI that we've been doing now for the last. I think this is episode 3. It's really nice of you all to join, and we changed the time this time around. Usually this happens at 5 p.m., but then we started getting requests from people in the US that it was too early for them, especially the West Coast. And it was very heartening to see that kind of response. So we moved it a little bit more closer to prime time. So this is the time that the webinar will be held now in the future, 7:30 p.m. And today the topic that we chose that we like to talk on is how tech companies perceive the role of the radiologists from an AI perspective. And as always, this will be very, very interactive. Please feel free to post all your questions in the chat box. The more controversial they are, the better, right? And since this is an Indian webinar, there has to be some masala in it. And so I'll quickly share my screen, and I had put together some slides that I'll try to introduce the concept of today's webinar. So this web series on AI continues. Thank you IRIA and ICRI for allowing me to do this. It's the third week. 7:30 p.m. is going to be our go-to time for the next till the time that Dr. Deepak Patkar lets me do this. Today, as I mentioned, the topic is what do tech companies want from radiologists? We have Prashant Warier, founder and CEO of Qure.ai. Prashant, can you wave for the camera?
Hi.
Prashant is what they would call a serial entrepreneur. He did his PhD in machine learning and from Georgia Tech, right?
That's right.
Yes, from Georgia Tech, and then went on to start a AI company in the advertising tech space. Moved back to India and then started Qure.ai, and I'm sure they don't need an introduction, at least in our country. One of the world's leading AI companies, or the leading AI company. Working most recently in the field of COVID-19 as well. And I'm sure we'll get to hear more about that as we go along. Next, we have Angel. Angel is a close friend, but more importantly, he's the founder and CEO of QUIBIM. Angel, can you wave for the camera? Angel joins us from Valencia in Spain, and he runs what is called as a quantitative imaging and biomarkers company. So his core area of expertise, he's a scientist himself, and I think he spent most of his educational and professional life working on quantitative biomarkers using medical imaging. And we'll hear more from him in due course. Next up, we have Vijayananda. Vijay is also a very famous face in the Indian AI scene. He works for Philips Healthcare and heads most of their AI development. One of the most down-to-earth and simple people that I know, and again a close friend. And as we go along this webinar, I definitely have very interesting instances to share about all three of these people, because they are also very close friends of mine. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. My name, of course, is Vidur Mahajan. I lead research at Caring. Caring is the Center for Advanced Research in Imaging, Neurosciences, and Genomics. We are the R&D wing of Mahajan Imaging, and have the privilege of working with companies such as these on various development and testing projects related to AI. So what do tech companies want from radiologists? I had shown this slide 2 weeks ago when we were talking about will AI replace radiologists. And at that time, we had concluded very, very strongly that it will not. And I had taken out this slide at that time to show that, i- at for AI to replace radiologists, there would have to be a lot of overlap between what a radiologist does and what AI can do. Today is the opposite. Today we'll talk about complementary skills. So, what can a radiologist do? Those are the tasks. How complex are those tasks, and how do these capabilities become complementary to what AI can do? So AI needs to have some capabilities, and then each of those capabilities needs to have some utility. So today we'll try to dive very deep into what is it that a radiologist can contribute to the process of developing AI. This is just a framework. As some of you may know, I am a big fan of frameworks and thinking in that direction. So that's why I thought that this slide would be useful. Next up, there is no debate that radiologists are needed across the entire AI development cycle. So if we look at uh, the development life cycle of not just AI, but any technology, right? There is a phase of development, and once a technology is developed, there is a phase of validation. And once a technology is validated, there is a phase of deployment. And I think all three of our speakers today have taken multiple products through this cycle, and we'll hear their thoughts. What I feel is radiologists during the phase of development, they contribute into figuring out what to develop, right? What should a radiologist or what should a technology company develop from an AI standpoint? And then, of course, for AI, you need data, and the data is with radiologists. So that's broadly the contribution during the development phase. Extremely, extremely critical because you can't move ahead without it. Next is validation. Does it work? Right? This is probably the most important question in AI today. And for good or bad, only radiologists can answer this, right? Does your AI model actually work? And just to clarify today, by AI model, we mean something, a software that does what a radiologist does, or a software that does something that a radiologist cannot do but improves image quality. And we've talked about this multiple times. I'll quickly reiterate. A radiologist can tell where a nodule is on a chest x-ray. That's something. When a computer does something like that, you can say, for the purposes of our discussion, you can say that that's AI. But in many instances, you can use AI to make a bad MRI image. So let's say, there is a lot of motion on a brain MR image, and you use some AI to make that brain MR image readable so that you can draw an inference from it. That is something that a human brain just cannot do. So that is also considered AI for purposes of this discussion. So coming back to this particular slide, uh, during development, radiologists are needed. During validation, they answer this question: does it work? Is it good enough? And then maybe most importantly, because many people can still cross this hurdle, but most importantly in the deployment, how do you want to use the software? What button do you press? Does it sit on your workstation? Does it sit on your phone? Where does the application actually sit? When is it failing? Right? This is very, very important feedback for the technology company. And lastly, does it actually make your life easier? Does it make your work better? Does it affect patient care? So this is broadly the contribution of radiologists. I know I've oversimplified it, but just for the sake of this discussion. And very importantly, and this question has come up again and again over the past 2 weeks: what are the commercial strategies for radiologists and technology companies to work together? And there are again, three main types of relationships that we've seen, and we'll hear more from our speakers today. There is the whole equity partnership, where AI company is founded by a radiologist, so that they are part of, they literally hold shares in the company. And I think this applies to QUIBIM, and we'll hear more from Angel on this. A radiologist can be a part-time consultant or an advisor. I think this is the most common mode of radiologists and technology companies working together. And the last and maybe least common is a radiologist becoming a full-time employee of a technology company. And various examples exist for each approach, and it depends entirely on the radiologist's, I say, risk appetite, because the farther you go from clinical practice, the more entangled you become in the world of technology. So with that, I'll start going on to our panel. And one sec. How do I? Yes. So nice. We already have some questions coming in. Very nice. So what we'll do is, guys, we'll do a quick round of maybe 2-3 minutes each as to what is it that each of you do, and maybe Ankel, since you're the guest from outside, we'll start with you. So Ankel, can you tell everyone, a little bit more specifically about your background and what QUIBIM does, and then later we'll dive into the role of the radiologist.
Okay, thank you, Vidur, and congrats also for this excellent initiative. I didn't know it was happening, but I am surprised and amazed now on the number of attendees. So as we introduced previously, I led QUIBIM. My background is mainly an electronics engineer, then I did a PhD in medical image processing. So I think that one of the highest value that is also related to this webinar is that I very early partnered a radiologist. So I started to work with a radiologist in 2007, so more or less. And this was a professor in one of the biggest academic centers of Spain, that is in Valencia in the east. And then I think we were a very good tandem, because all the radiology needs, I started to work in a reading room.
Oh, nice.
And I was surrounded by radiologists, and I was living that atmosphere of exchanging dots and reporting. And I think that all that impressed me a lot and defined my rest of the life, until now. So I decided to found QUIBIM with that radiologist in, I would say, 5 years later. So we had been doing research and developing solutions for our own radiology department. And then we decided, okay, why not? We create a QUIBIM, and we put a kind of automated engine to perform analysis in the radiology routine. So we had some things clear from radiology, that whatever an engineer analyzes, the results have to be intuitive, understandable, communicable, and understandable by the patients as well, not only by the clinicians. So I mean, that was my beginning, and nice. What we are doing right now. It's been defining QUIBIM as well. Yeah.
Great. So just to summarize for everyone, so Ankel's co-founder, if I may, is a radiologist. In fact, one of the senior most radiologists in Spain, Professor Luis Bonmati. And he, sorry, did I say that wrong?
No.
And so that's how QUIBIM started. So a radiologist was at the forefront with QUIBIM from day one. Great. And Ankel actually spent time sitting out of the radiology reading room, which is, I personally find that to be quite cool. Prashant, and why don't you take a shot? How did you start, and how have you been interacting with radiologists through your career? Very succinctly, then we'll go into detail.
Absolutely, I'll try to answer quickly. So I mean, my background, I am a data scientist by training. I've been doing data science and AI for the last 20 years. and that has been my
20
background.
years, you don't look that old, yeah?
That's why I'm wearing a t-shirt. Right? So yeah, so I mean, so I've done AI in retail, in consumer products, in advertising, many areas. And about 4 years back, so one of my previous company was acquired by Fractal, and I was talking to the CEO of Fractal about what we could do together in Fractal, and then this idea of using AI in healthcare came up.
Could you tell a little bit about what is Fractal, Prashant?
Sure. So Fractal is a analytics and AI services company. So they provide analytics AI services to Fortune 500 companies. So think of the kind of work that somewhere between like a McKinsey, the kind of work that a McKinsey would do versus what a Infosys would do, right? It's more, I mean, sort of mix of consulting and analytics and some tech, some big data and technology. And at Fractal, I mean, we said, okay, let's focus on AI. And then at that time, I mean, 2016, 15, 16, AI was really good at understanding images. So we said, let's pick radiology. I mean, I had no background in radiology, I'll be honest. Before 2015, I probably did not know even one radiologist outside of somebody I had met to as a doctor, right? I mean, so that's when we started talking about how we could use AI to interpret radiology images. And one of the first people we got on board was Pooja Rao, who's a medical doctor as well as a data scientist, and she was based out of Netherlands, Amsterdam, and then she moved back to Mumbai to start Qure along with me. And of course, I mean, throughout our journey, I mean, one of the first things that we did is we said, can we hire data scientists full time? Can we hire a radiologist full time? And we could not. I mean, we spoke to many radiologists, but there was nobody in 2016 who was ready to come join us full time at Qure. Then, I mean, of course, we started partnering with hospital groups. We spoke to many radiologists around the world. So we work with many people. I mean, Dr. Shalini from Columbia Asia has had a huge role to play in the products that we developed. Dr. Mustafa BVG from Nagpur has worked with us. Dr. Sonia Gupta, who's on the call today, she's advised us a lot. So, I mean, I think over time, I mean, like you said, right, I mean, we have got advice on how to, what products we should build, how we should go about building those products, what are the features we should have, how we should present those features to the end customer, how does that sort of get validated. I mean, again, validation we've done with radiologists from Harvard, Mass General, and so on. We've done validation across, I mean, with caring as well. We have done some validation studies. Dr. Vasant has contributed a lot towards what we have done here. And then I think right now we are at a point where a lot of radiologists are helping us actually integrate this into the workflow. So the products are ready. Now we are integrating this into the radiologist workflow, and they are giving us input into what works. I mean, how does what kind of integration works? For example, one of the things that we learned while doing this is we could interpret a chest X-ray, and we could detect about a year ago we could detect about 15 different abnormalities on a chest X-ray, and the point was that, I mean, while we could detect all those abnormalities, it was not adding to the radiologist workflow. So we said, okay, let's not worry about the abnormalities. Let's look at what are normal X-rays. So out of 100 X-rays, maybe about 50, 60 are normal X-rays, right? If you could report those normal X-rays really accurately, you can significantly improve the workflow of a radiologist. And so we moved our focus away from reporting abnormalities on, let's say, 30 X-rays, all the kinds of abnormalities from atelectasis to pleural effusions to consolidation and so on, to actually reporting normal X-rays and saying that out of these 100, these 50 are clearly normal. And we can almost auto-report these 50 X-rays because there will be no errors in the report that we generate on these X-rays. So the workflow, how do we integrate into the workflow? That became one of the questions that radiologists started answering for us. And now we are at a stage where I think also radiologists are really helpful in presenting this to other organizations. So when we talk to customers, right, again, having a radiologist on your side who's talking to customers about our solution also helps, because they can talk the same language, versus when I am presenting, I'm not a radiologist, I'm a data scientist, right? I can present some of these things, but once you ask two questions, there is not enough depth to answer all of those, right? So having a radiologist in the room, having a radiologist in the meeting is very useful. So we are also seeing that on the commercial side, business development side, having radiologists work with us is turning out to be quite helpful.
No, great. That's very super insightful. Yeah. So no, and thanks for painting that picture. I think we'll just break. I think Dr. Deepak Patkar is on the call. He's the
Hi,
president
hi,
of
hi, hi,
IRIA.
hi.
Sir, your camera got turned off, I think.
Okay. So, am I now?
Yes, yes. So, sir, we have Angel, Vijaya, and Prashant with us.
Hi,
Right.
hi. Good evening, all of you.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Just
sir.
wanted to thank all of you for being part of this initiative started by Vidur and his father. And this is immensely helpful. I've got a lot of feedbacks. I think we are on the fourth one, Vidur.
Third one, sir.
Third one. So this is really appreciated by a lot of young radiologists. In fact, I have about 11 residents, and all of them were saying that they are, at least a few of them are looking at option of looking at AI as a career. So that really helps. So we started off with a thought process that we'll probably have a small white paper from Vidur and Harsh about this, or just create awareness about this. This has gone much beyond that. And I really appreciate Vidur and Harsh's efforts for this, and all of you, of course, for being part of this. So that's all I wanted to say. If
Great. Very sweet of
RI
you.
needs to do anything more than this, I would be more than happy. I have another 9 months to go.
Okay.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much. Very sweet of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for-
Thank you again for being part of this.
Thanks for doing this, Vidur. It is very, very useful. Thank you so much.
Right.
Great.
Please carry on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
So, so Vijaya, now coming on to you.
What is it?
Possibly.
We will ask them to retype.
Yes.
Yeah,
we are live.
Hi everyone. Sorry, there was some technical glitch, and all of us were, I think, moved out of the meeting. Vijaya, can you turn your camera on, and then we'll start talking. I'd request everyone to please post your questions again. So yes. Hi Terry, how are you? Thank you so much for joining. This is quite amazing. So Vijaya, just coming back to you. Is it easier for Philips? You know, is it easier for Philips to get radiologists to come and talk to you, to get radiologists to come and work for you? And if you could brief us a little bit about, like, I know you've been at Philips for some 80 years or something. So yeah, so is it easier for Philips? I know you've been at Philips for some.
I hear a lot of echo.
Some audio. So yeah, so is it easier for Philips? I know you've been at Philips for some. I hear a lot of echo. Is it?
Yeah, we are live. We are live.
Yeah, like, no, there is a strange echo coming. I think that's done. Yeah, Vijaya, why don't you?
Okay, sure. So yeah, I have been with Philips probably from 22 years now, and I joined in the MR group, and later moved to different groups like CT, X-ray, and then we have a business group called workstation, clinical workstation for radiologists. I moved to that group, and in the last, I would say probably 6-7 years, I've been heavily involved in the big data analytics and the data science. Yeah, so to answer your question, yes, Philips, we do have full-time radiologists in our company, and of course we have a center in Bangalore where we have not just radiologists but cardiologists, pathologists, genomics people, etc. And yeah, so if you look at what Philips does in this particular space, it is very encouraging that from day one, when we start off with the project, we always engage and collaborate with the principal investigators for that particular study, especially from research. and it doesn't start from the development. I would rather go back 2 steps behind and start from where we need to discuss with the radiologists on identifying the unmet clinical need. Even before, let's say, data gathering, etc., we heavily discuss. Typically, we have a workshop with the relevant clinicians. I said clinicians because it's not just radiologists. We have multiple products, and we work on multiple projects within those products, ranging from connected care, genomics, pathology, etc. So we involve them heavily during the brainstorm and in the initial phase itself to define the problem. And of course, after that, data collection, development, validation. Deployment is slightly different in the sense we have, for most of the work, we develop algorithms that will sit in our own products, right? So which means that we have a product in the field, and more often than not, we develop certain algorithms that will sit in the product and of course help the clinicians, the patients, etc. Yeah, I'll stop here probably, and then
No, that's actually super interesting because like Philips has ISP, GE has AW, Siemens has Singo. So we'll gradually get into that conversation also, as in how
sure.
a startup thinks about radiologists using their product, and how Philips is maybe a little bit more privileged to have their own so-called deployment platform. That's super interesting. One question, and I'll leave it to the three of you. Whoever wants to take it. One consistent question that we get on such webinars is about skill sets that radiologists should have. So, there are courses all the way from 2-week Coursera courses on AI for everyone, all the way to a master's in data science that a radiologist can do. As people who look at recruiting radiologists into their company, what do you think is valuable? Like what kind of skills beyond, say, like you assume someone's a great radiologist, but beyond that, what should be like a requisite skill set? I don't know. This time we can go the same order. Ankil, why don't you start? Or if somebody else has a strong opinion.
Well, thank you. I think that that's a very interesting question indeed. So to our side, I think that radiologists, as you said, no, there are many resources right now to learn Python or whatever. I'm not saying that radiologists should not learn that, because obviously they have to get knowledge on that IT domain and on that IT space, and including Python programming if they want, but mainly for their own purpose and to understand better all the AI models and how we work on that. But specifically, it's not what I would look for a radiologist if incorporating into the company. No, I'm thinking in radiologists mainly in the business development side, helping us in in spreading the word in a way that other clinicians can understand. I mean that's the strongest weakness that we have, no, from the computer science side. And also, I think in radiologists as the main experts for the annotations, because right now I think we have tons of data, but data is not qualified at all in terms of annotations of quality and, based on radiologist criteria specifically. I mean, we can have a lot of NLP annotation, but we still need room there to improve annotations together with radiologists, no? And I think that, I think that by intellectual curiosity, they have to understand our vocabulary, our methodologies. As I went to MRI semiology courses as an engineer, and I wanted to be there to learn myself how an MRI is reported, for example. No?
So that is very interesting, Ankil. So essentially, you're saying, there are, so one is the annotation is, of course, a skill that a radiologist already would have. But the business development part is very interesting because, and I think Prashant also alluded to it a little bit that, from a pure commercial sales perspective, it is obviously a much more powerful way of bringing your product to market. So so that's actually very
Yeah.
insightful.
I mean, just to clarify, if you say sales to a radiologist, probably the radiologist will run away.
Of
So
course,
I,
yeah,
I
correct.
think I think it's a bad word. So we have oncologists working in pharmaceutical companies in the business development area, and they are medical directors, right? And they are
Yeah.
working on that section. And if we are doing that in treatment, I think in diagnosis and detection, which is our side, I think we have to think in radiologists as well.
Got it. Like in pharmaceuticals, there is this entire field of a medical scientific liaison.
Yes.
Not to say that, a radiologist has to be a liaison, but, essentially a bridge, right, between the tech team and the user. So that is very insightful. Prashant, what do you think? What are some courses, what do you wish the radiologists that you work with knew? In order to be more valuable to your team. We can't hear you, Shan. Sorry.
Sorry, I went on mute to reduce the noise. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. So, I mean, while I think if we look at data scientists who have done all these data science, radiologists who have done all these data science courses, or I mean, on Coursera and other places, it's very useful. I think more importantly, what we are looking for is somebody who's got an open mind, because and ability to think beyond what is possible today, right? And so what happens a lot of times is that radiologists think that the algorithm can basically replicate what they do, which is not capable to do, right? Today, none of the algorithms are able to replicate what a radiologist does, and I don't know if that is possible 10 years, 15 years from now, right? And so we have to understand how something can fit into a radiologist workflow, how it can add value to a radiologist or a general physician, general practitioner. Right? So that is where I think people need to be able to think through what are the use cases. And sometimes what happens also is that what I've seen is a lot of times, I mean, this happens a lot of times, is that radiologists feel like, okay, AI is not ready because it's not able to replicate whatever I do. It's not able to create everything at 100% accuracy or whatever that expectation. I think that is something which we feel is very useful, to have that open mind and have that vision towards what needs to be developed so that it can be used by other radiologists, right?
So is there a Coursera course on open-mindedness?
I think product management would be something that I would
Got
think
it.
about.
Got
Right?
it. No, I think that's very valuable. This whole concept of product market fit, right?
Yeah.
If a radiologist was to do it for a radiology product, it would be infinitely more helpful. Very insightful. Vijaya, what do your radiologists do? Or
Yeah,
or
so
what or like what do you wish they knew how to do?
no, sure. So as I said, we have, in fact, within the radiology space, we have a product called IntelliSpace Discovery, which is a kind of is meant for research purposes. So what we do there is it's a research workstation that we have radiologists working on that workstation. So what we believe is, whenever we develop certain algorithms, especially in the radiology space, in the imaging space, leave out the pathology part, we use the IntelliSpace Discovery product to get it validated. Of course, we also use this for the annotation purposes as well. Now, one of the key things that we like is from the radiologist, because if you look at the process of validation, it is not a one-time validation. It's an iterative process, which means we get it validated. We see that there are some issues. We probably then fine-tune the algorithm and again revalidate it. So the ISD product that I mentioned helps in doing this kind of iterative process. And to me, radiologist who is a technology savvy person, and as Prashant said, should be a person who is in a continuous process of learning that comes only with that open-mindedness. And because the technologies are changing so fast, even for the data scientists and who is in this AI space, looks at let's say 6 months behind, some new network is already outdated. So to me, being open and have that mind of continuous learning is something that is really important. And there is also another skill set that I would probably expect, is that whenever we go to the radiologist for, let's say, doing some annotations, either for training or for the validation purposes, we of course give them a specific tool to do the annotation. But I would expect that probably, so if let's say you have a problem to solve, you at home, you call a carpenter to do some woodwork, he has a toolbox, right? In the toolbox, he has so many tools that he would use one of the tools to do that work. Similarly, if let's say the radiologists have this toolbox and figure out which is the best tool to do the annotation very quickly, so much so that I would expect them to actually use the AI model to already do the annotation once, and then they become more efficient in doing their work. So at least having this kind of tool sets and toolkits is very important. The last point I would mention is, if an aspiring radiologist wants to also be aware of what all the skill sets that are required in AI and be part of the AI, I would suggest, of course, going through several courses, if not, be part of a technology company. There are several startup companies in this particular space, and once you are part of it and start being part of a publication, you will realize a lot of what it means. Although it looks like the development part is, of course, very less compared to the entire space of data collection up until validation and deployment. But being part of a technology company, a product company, and being part of a publication really helps a lot in terms of gathering and making themselves aware of what is required.
Interesting. So basically, what I take away from that is that rather than doing courses and, trying to actually learn how to code or learning how to, unless somebody is very, very interested in that domain, rather than that, just hands-on learning might be a better investment of time and effort, where you become part of an initiative, decide to write a paper on it. That's very, very interesting. We'll address this whole issue of annotation in a bit, but let's take a few questions. I will try to first take questions that deal with the topic at hand today, which is how radiologists specifically can play a role. We have this question from Neil. Once the AI software is validated and developed, how do you go about incorporating it into hospitals and imaging platforms? So any one of you wants to take this, especially from a radiologist, like a user's perspective? Any interesting story that you have, any difficulty you faced while implementing in the actual clinical scenario? Would love to hear. Any three of you can take a shot at it.
Well, I can give one. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Angel. You want to say something?
Yeah, just to say that, I think that right now we are in the marketplace era, and one personal opinion that we have is that it's not clear to us, at least, how the marketplaces will enter into the radiology departments. Because
what is a marketplace, Angel?
A marketplace is platforms mainly provided by the big players now, like can be GE, Philips, Siemens, Canon, whatever, machine development providers, no? That since they already have all the network of customers, no? The easiest is, let's take the companies already there, the startups, and let's put the solutions inside, no? And we see that that will be a major challenge. We understand that it can be part of the future, but to our experience, it's not clear to us how the radiologists will be using this kind of marketplaces or solutions. You translate a new decision to the radiologist, and I think that using those different tools as integration to the workflow will be difficult. No, we think that AI probably should be closer to the modality, rather than being something that the radiologists have to play, decide. I mean, radiologists even do not have time to decide their own iPhone apps. Starting to choose the different apps in the department will be a major challenge. So it's not clear to us how the workflow will happen.
Interesting. Vijay, you were saying?
Yeah, so I mean, I was about to talk about the marketplace. Good that Angel covered it. But there is also, so we have also a marketplace, and the way that we look at it is, as Angel said, yes, it is difficult to figure out how it will fit in the overall workflow. But given the advantage that at least Philips has is that we have products. So which means that if we could allow the radiologists or the department to figure out whether, let's say, a particular algorithm will be useful, they can purchase from the marketplace. Of course, marketplace is also given by us, but then it comes and sits in our own product. If it is a different product, then it becomes a bit difficult. And we always tend to make it, put all efforts to make it such that the algorithm is actually in the product in a non-invasive way, in the sense that the radiologists shouldn't even be aware of the fact that there is a change in the workflow. So, for example, if, let's say, when I get a MR scan from a scanner and then it's pushed to the workstation, if I could pre-process the information and show it instead of the radiologist doing it manually, then of course there is no difference in the workflow. So what we aim for is typically to ensure that the algorithms that are placed in the products are in a seamless way such that it doesn't impact the workflow. This is one example with our own products, but we have also tried out with other products where, as long as we can make it interoperable, for example, even if it is a third-party research workstation, but if you have a mechanism where you could pre-process that algorithm in a different workstation, again in a non-invasive way, and get the results out in an interoperable way to the existing workstation that the radiologist is working on, that's also something that will become invasive. And a number of other algorithms that we embed within the, for example, in MR scanner that we create, we have a number of algorithms in the reconstruction that in no way impacts the workflow. And of course, the intention is to have a lot of productivity there, be more efficient, etc. So my take is that as long as we make it seamless and non-invasive in whatever ways it is possible, that's the best way of introducing the AI to the workflow.
Got it. So essentially, I think Angel and Vijay, you're saying kind of the same thing, where you have the opportunity to deploy algorithms without even the user noticing that they are there. I think Prashant, you have a different approach, right? Where like you deploy independent of the manufacturer and independent of the packs, and it's a completely different system that you overlay into hospitals. Can you talk a little about your experience?
So our experience has been that, I mean, Vijay brought a good point, right? I mean, they have products, right? And as a startup, we don't have access to those products. And for us to seamlessly integrate with those products is not easy, because Philips is not going to spend that much time integrating with us, though we are getting there now, especially with some of the hardware devices, X-rays and CT scanners, where those automatically will show the Qure results as part of an X-ray or as part of a CT scan. Both on device as well as on packs, we are getting there. But that said, I mean, as a startup, you don't have that access immediately, right? And so for us, we have developed many tools around our deep learning capability or machine learning capability to understand images and to process the radiology images, where We have our own apps, so we deliver our solution on app. So you can download an app and you can see all the results of the Qure algorithm on the app. We have online portals where you can go and you can see the Qure results on those portals. And of course, I mean, we integrate with the PAC systems. We have outputs in many different formats where it can seamlessly integrate. I mean, if like, for example, a lot of PAC systems have what is called a GSPS capability, which allows us to overlay findings on top of the image, right? But that is not there in every PAC. So if you don't have it, then we cannot show you. So what we'll show you is the original image followed by a second image, which has the Qure processing on top of it, right? So basically, there is an X-ray and there is a second what is called a secondary capture, which will have the abnormal regions marked out and the Qure report as part of it. And sometimes we also embed the PDF report generated by Qure into the same image. So many ways we are working together, because finally, I mean, for a startup, it is hard to get into a hospital and work with like a GE or a Philips or a Siemens PACs there. I mean, obviously, a lot of times when we get in there, especially when we started talking to hospitals about 2 years ago, we did not have access to the GE, Philips, Siemens of the world. And so we had to put in all these different processes where we could fit in seamlessly, but not directly through these marketplaces. But now we are on these marketplaces like Angel and Philips mentioned, Angel and Vijay mentioned, and then we are also on many of these. We are also getting into many devices where on device we will have the Qure algorithms.
Nice.
On the CT scanner, on the
I think so. We also have Dr. Sonia Gupta, who's the director of ultrasound at Beth Israel, I think, if I'm not wrong, who also answered this question, saying that you basically have to develop a partnership with the hospital or radiology department to get them to use it and then give you feedback, and that's how you can literally take your products and put them into a place where they can matter. Very interesting question, and I will ask this: what is the pay for radiologists working in AI? I told you I'll make this fun.
I think it should be. I mean, I think it is. I assume it is about the same as a radiologist working outside of AI, right? I mean, so similar pay structures. I think with startups, maybe there are.
Vijay, you don't seem to be nodding your head.
No, I to a certain extent I agree, but to us it's also about the quality. Yeah? That means it could be, for example, the annotation or the validations that we get. And if we know that, let's say, there are these experts who understand the AI process and what it means to do a quality job, let's say, with the annotations and the kind of interaction that we have, because in many cases Philips have this co-creation with the clinical sites, with the radiologists, as I said in the earlier, in the initial phase of the brainstorm, etc. And we believe that giving something extra than what Prashant mentioned, in the sense, of course, they will obviously be getting at least the same as what they would otherwise get. But we believe in the fact that here is an expert who has worked with us or with others and brings in a lot of expertise. Then we don't mind paying very high issue for that.
Got it. So I think, and we addressed this question in the first part of the series also, where it basically comes down to value, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, one's pay is generally, linked to the value that one brings. And, that's why, like, Bill Gates is who he is, right? But I think it's also important for radiologists and to realize that what you do is very valuable, right? Like the annotations part, which is probably the most boring and irritating task for a radiologist to do.
And which is the most important for the technology.
Is the most important for AI,
yes.
Right? And it is, in fact, at Caring, we also get these requests, right? And you'll have, some fancy Harvard Business School type person saying, hey, but, a radiologist gets like X rupees per hour. So if they can do, 20 cases per hour, why should, we pay them that much more? And my general response to that is, okay, Mr. Harvard Business School, sit here and press the space bar for days continuously, 9 hours a day, and I will pay you 3 days worth of your salary. you do that? So that is actually it's a reality, right? That it's not a very interesting kind of job, which is where I think Vijaya's point around the toolkits is super important. And I think if there's any radiologist wanting to build a career in, and I say this as a non-radiologist, right? But any radiologist who's wanting to build a career in AI, good starting point is semi-supervised annotation, right? Like, annotation does not carry legal liability. It does not, and it's super important. So can you figure out ways of, annotating at 10x the speed and all of that? Any thoughts you guys have on that? We're running out of time, so I just want to quickly take some of these very interesting questions.
Well, I think in QUIBIM we try to hire radiologists for annotation, but even paying twice or three times what they earn in private. But it's very difficult, in the end. So, I mean, we are working with alternatives. You can outsource annotations. And in the companies where, they are performing annotations, they also have right now radiologists are supervising the annotation. So I think there are many options.
Nice. There's one very specific kind of question. It's from GTM. Must be Gotham. I don't know. Go to market. Is it necessary for a radiologist to focus on all modalities or focusing only on one? So whoever can take that quickly.
Well, at least from Philips' side, we always at least go to experts, which means that we know that in ultrasound, for example, these are the people who are experts, sonologists, etc. And let's say in case of pathology, pathologists are the experts. In case of radiology, of course, CT, MR, X-ray, we look at it on the par. But we do look at experts in a particular domain.
Nice. And then the same guy actually asked another question. Will AI technology companies acknowledge our work? I promise this is not me typing into another. Will AI companies acknowledge our work after developing a software, or they use us radiologists as use and throw?
At least typically.
I can answer that, guys, on behalf of all of you. That is definitely not the case. Like exactly. I can say it with a lot of pride that Qure.ai literally gave us a paper in the Lancet, right? And it is probably the biggest gift that anyone can ever give, a group of young researchers, right? And that was because we worked with them, we helped them test their software, we were part of the paper and all of that. So it comes down to what was it that you did? What were your terms of doing the work? A lot of things. So I don't think anybody can use and throw anyone if you really don't want them. The next question is from a guy called Vasant. Maybe we know him. If you are expecting radiologists on the business development side, do you expect them to meet sales targets? Does it help if they go for an MBA or proper understanding of business language? No, R. Vasant already has that, so maybe it's someone else. Yeah, but this is I think this is a very interesting question. What are your thoughts on radiologists who have business experience or business school experience and this whole sales issue? If any one of you guys,
I don't think. We are looking for radiologists who are going to sell and have a sales target, right? We're looking for radiologists who can talk to other radiologists and convey the use of the solution, convey why the solution can help other radiologists. And that does not require a MBA or any business degree. It requires you to talk radiology language and talk the same language as the person on the other side of the table. And so I don't think an MBA is required. I think definitely, I think the open-mindedness that Vijay and I spoke about, that is required, that a radiologist should be willing to go and be part of a conversation where they are in effect selling a solution on behalf of Qure to another radiologist who's part of a different organization, and that open-mindedness needs to be there. But that's about it. I don't think an MBA degree is required.
No, I fully agree. I think it's more curiosity, open-mindedness as well, and I don't think our AI companies work well with traditional salesmen. Our sales process requires a lot of what we call scientific marketing, that mainly is based on scientific prestige, publications, showing journal papers to the doctors and discussing, having more or less scientific and intellectual discussions. I think that's the most powerful sales, weapon. And actually, traditional salesmen that do not know how to do that. So a radiologist can help in that.
No, that's super interesting, and I'm sorry I'm skipping a lot of questions here because I'm trying to stick to the theme. So there's a question from Ashish that says it's basically on explainable AI, but I did want to bring in that element that how do you guys consult radiologists from a point of view of helping with the data science, right? With deciphering the models and the whole opening up of the model itself, explainability has been a huge issue with deep learning. So have you consulted radiologists on that? Do they add value to that piece?
Yeah, so I can quickly answer from my point of view. So,
sorry, Vijay, just one thing. If it's fine with three of you, we could maybe push by another 10 minutes or so. If any of you has to leave, you're welcome to.
5 minutes in my side, yeah. 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
So when we work on a couple of projects, what we have seen is that the explainability is definitely an important factor for especially on this imaging related models. And we also often look at a scenario where there is a combination of the radio mix, if you have heard that term for the audience, plus the deep learning based approaches. Wherein,
what's the difference, Vijay?
So the radio mix is more looking at the visual and of course subvisual in some cases of the images itself. It could be the texture, it could be the intensity, etc., etc. So we are looking at the shape of a particular anatomy or a particular lesion, looking at the architectural distortions within the image that can be actually seen by the human eyes, plus something that the AI, the black box part, can come together and then deliver good results. And that's one point. The second point is, in many of the cases, we have also found that instead of telling that, hey, you know what, this is an X-ray and there are traces of pneumonia, I would rather say that, hey, here is an X-ray and there are traces of consolidation, which are cavities, which are very something that even the radiologists can really look at and say, yes, there are these human understandable features, and because of which there could be a possibility that it will end up with a particular disease. That's my take.
Got it. There's another very interesting question. What skills do you expect a radiologist to acquire in order to use your tools? This is quite interesting, and would love your thoughts on this.
When they say, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please.
So when they talk about the tools, I assume that they're talking about the annotation tools.
No. I think the actual AI algorithm.
Or to me, as I said, at least in my perspective, it should be non-invasive, which means the radiologist will not even come to know that there is actually a tool that they have to use it separately, independently.
Got it. Prashant, Angel?
Totally agree on that. Totally agree. It should be completely non-invasive. Yeah, nothing, no new skills required.
There is like this whole movement happening that, medical students should be taught AI, radiologists should be taught AI, anyone should be taught AI. So then do you think that may not be, as relevant as it's made out to be?
I think we do that mainly. It's not that they have to learn AI, but probably they have to learn data interpretation. So we, for example, went to RSNA with the Seamless AI motto, right? So Seamless AI is what we support. Actually, today we also mentioned several times. But even if you are purely seamless and you just take the image, you analyze it in an engine that you have in the hospital. Let's say an engine, right, in the CPD, in the backstage. At some point, you have to give back the results. And when you give back the results, yeah, it can be, you can spot lung nodules, that's okay. But in our side, we are an imaging biomarkers company, so we are providing numbers as well. So you have to explain what does this number mean, how you have to interpret it, is it mild, moderate, severe? So I think there are challenges today in improving data interpretation. So we are in the position right now at the very first moment that blood tests started to, work out in medicine. And we are providing quantitative information. And right now, doctors have to understand this kind of new blood tests and how to report them. No.
So I had one more thought on this, Vidur. See, I mean, I think while the products that we develop, AI products, are all non-invasive, which should automatically integrate into the workflow, I think radiologists still need to learn how to differentiate between different products and to be able to quantify the impact of a product, right? And to measure the benefit, because there is so much hype in the market. There are so many companies marketing different products, especially around COVID now, that everybody is building a COVID solution, right? To be able to say that this product actually works versus this does not work, and to be able to quantify that and to measure that, right? That is a kind of skill set that is needed. Some kind of a statistical skill set is very useful. So having that biostatistics background along with radiology would certainly help radiologists and healthcare organizations pick the right solution when they are looking for AI products to help them.
So if I was to summarize, at least this skill set bit, we talked about, obviously a little bit of, product management kind of skill set, able to decipher what is a useful thing, then which segues into the whole business development aspect of things. And then, of course, open-mindedness. That's super interesting, and I would say open-mindedness combined with passion is probably another very, very essential skill set. And I'm glad you brought up the statistics piece, Prashant, because that's one of the things that we work on ourselves quite extensively. One question, and this is not asked by anyone, this is one of those that I had thought of. Can each of you very quickly give short example of what has been the toughest conversation, either like about your product that you've had with any radiologist, customer, partner, consultant, advisor, employee? What has been like the toughest conversation where you were like, what do I do? We'll start with Angel again, because he
has to leave, right? Yeah.
Well, I have to leave, so I will just say that toughest conversation is when I think you are in a product design, and I think you have to meet the radiologist at product design, and when you have given so many steps that you have even started to figure out interface characteristics. So right now we are about to launch a prostate solution that we will probably launch next month if everything goes well. Let's cross fingers. And in that prostate solution, for example, we were developing everything for surface coils, segmentation, and mainly standard of care MRI exams. But then you can meet a radiologist saying, "Oh, we are using endorectal coils. What happens with endorectal coils, for example?" No? So I think that toughest conversations are kind of giving steps back in design, and rethinking the product and things like that. But we try to avoid this kind of tough conversations, but putting the radiologists in the loop quite soon.
I think, Angel, you are perfectly positioned to become a politician. you answered perfectly well by not telling us anything.
That's not true. That's not true.
No, I'm just
I
kidding.
cannot give you names, no, but we had example in the meeting room of QUIBIM having a radiologist saying, all our centers are doing endorectal coil imaging, so why are not you guys designing a product for prostate with endorectal? And that was one of the moments, no, that all the team was shocked, no, but
I can completely imagine. I can
like,
completely imagine. Prashant, what has been your toughest conversation? I'm sure there have been many. But...
I've had many tough conversations. When we started Qure, actually about 4 years back, I was trying to partner with organizations to get radiology expertise because we could not hire a radiologist, and I was trying to partner with hospital groups in India to get radiology expertise plus get access to data. And the first question that everybody asked was, why should Qure do it? There is Philips, there is GE, there is Siemens, and there are so many big companies who are in this space. Why should Qure be doing this kind of work, right? And that was a tough one to answer. At that time, it was definitely a tough one. And fortunately, there were believers in what we promised and people who worked with us. But it was something where we were starting to do something which other people could also do and other big companies could also do. And I think that explaining that that we were in a unique position and to build something different was tough.
You still haven't told us what the conversation was.
Maybe
But never mind. I'm sure Vijaya will give us a more masala example.
No, I think in one of the projects that we were doing, I would probably give a pathology example, although it is imaging and not in the radiology space. But so we have a product in the pathology. It's a pathology workstation that also has a mechanism to annotate and validate, etc. And one of the funniest thing that we found in while we were working on one of the projects was that there was annotations created for the validation, and that was given as an input, but the algorithm was identifying something that was not annotated as a positive case. So it was basically the cell in case of the pathology, the nuclei and the cells. And the microvessels that were being annotated, that the pathologist had not annotated, but the AI model was actually annotating it. So obviously during the validation, there is this false positives, false negatives, and the pathologist was saying, hey, come on, this algorithm has detected something that I have not identified as a microvessel. And it took us a lot of time to explain that, yes, it could be that you might have missed. Of course, he's a very senior pathologist, but not exposed to this kind of AI working, in the sense the algorithms can indeed detect in some cases something that are missed out from the pathologist and the radiologist. So it took a while for us to tell him that no, this is indeed. Of course, he got it verified with somebody else, but it took a while for us to explain to him. This could be, I would say, one of the cases where we had a very good discussion with the pathologist.
Great. I think that's a happy note to end on. But guys, thanks again, and to everyone who's stuck around, especially after that small technical glitch we had. Thank you so much. We will be doing this every week at the same time. I think at least for the next few weeks. Please, I've just sent out all the email addresses of everyone who was present. Any thoughts, any feedback, anything you have, please do write to me. There was a question on radiologists being involved on the panel. Last week, we had Dr. Felipe Kitamura, who's the head of AI at DASA, along with Dr. Paras Lakhani, who's the guy who wrote the first paper on tuberculosis AI, and along with that was Vasant from my team. So I'll maybe we'll try to put up those webinars on the IRIA website. And with that, I know there are questions pouring in. Please feel free to email everyone. These are all very nice people. They will reply, I'm sure. And with that, we'll be closing. But thank you everyone for joining in. I see a lot of people I know here: Javesh, Monishika, Terry. Of course, thank you so much for joining. It's an honor. We have Mr. Sudhir Bell, Dr. Anjali Agarwal, Piyush Saxena. My God, Cleveland Clinic. So thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you. So thank you everyone, and thanks Prashant, thanks Vijay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks Vidur.
Yeah,
Thanks.
bye.
Thanks for the excellent moderation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.